If you want to learn how to make thousands of dollars in as little as 30 minutes, and not in the scammy way, but by funding double closings, which are awesome by the way, then you need to make sure you understand how to not lose money. Because if you're losing money, then you definitely ain't making money. So in this video, I'm going to show you guys the entire process of how I almost lost $80,000 on a double closing, but how I avoided losing that money. Keep in mind, I have a pretty good idea what I'm doing. Still almost lost all that money, but I'm going to show you guys how I avoided that and show you the exact process you can follow to make sure if you're ever considering funding or going about funding a double closing that you do not lose money, because that's not what we want for anyone, and that's why I'm here. So let's jump down to the computer and I'm going to show you guys what the heck is going on with this transaction. So a little bit of background on this thing. I had a deal sent to me. It was a same day funding, and you might be thinking, red flag number one, same day funding. I don't disagree with you, but let me explain a little bit more. On a double closing, if the B2C funds are already in, which by the way, side note, if you guys haven't already watched my videos about double closings and the entire process, click on this video first and then come back here when you're done so that you understand how the process works. But in a double closing, if the B2C funds are already in, you're like pretty dang protected. It's pretty solid if the B2C funds are in, because that means that there's already funds to cover your funds, and that's like a great mechanism for protection. And so in this case, remember, this is the information I was given, but the information that I received was, hey, we have a deal that needs $80,000 today, but the B2C funds are already in, which in my head means the funds are already protected. So I go from absolutely not, I'm not doing a rush funding, something like that, to, okay, I'll consider this. Because what do? Well, I charge a much higher fee for same day closings, because the fact that I have enough money liquid to close that quickly is kind of a big deal, and it's worth more money to the person, and they're desperate, so you can raise the fee a little bit. So I tack on that extra fee. I'm like, hey, this would be pretty cool. You know, make a couple $1,000s. We're talking 20, 30 minutes worth of work. Pretty solid, right? So that's why I would even consider something like this. If you are new to double closing and new to transactional lending, don't rush it. And even for me, I shouldn't rush it, and that's how I almost screwed this one up. So keep that in mind. But let me show you how it works. So I received the request saying that they had the B2C funds, and I'll go ahead and show you guys the email. I was thinking I was going to go like hypothetical here, but screw it. I'm just going to show you guys what actually happened. So here's the email coming in. It says Ryan's going to be funding the A to B purchase of the deal. He'll be wiring in 75 grand, which is the balance to close. Let's get this thing rock and rolling, right? So again, if you checked out my B2C, or sorry, my double closing transaction walkthrough, you would see kind of the sequence of events here. So when I receive a request for double closing, the first thing that I want to do is get the contracts, right? Now, keep in mind, as we'll learn throughout this transaction, the contracts can be fake, right? Nothing makes the contracts necessarily real just because they exist. Anybody can make a contract online, not a big deal. But the first thing I do is I get the contracts and make sure that there is at least a first transaction and a second transaction, and that the dollar amounts make sense. And side note, that the dollar amount on the second is enough to at least cover whatever fee I'm charging, right? AKA, I can get paid for funding this transaction. Never a problem as long as those things are in place, right? So I'm checking for the contracts, and then the next thing I'm doing is I'm just trying to figure out, hey, what is the amount that I need to wire? Now, the reason why I want to figure out the amount I need to wire is because I'm going to send in a payoff statement that's going to tell them, okay, Ryan's wiring this amount, and he's owed this amount in interest on top of that, and that's what needs to come back to him, right? So I have to figure out what that amount is so that I can then send the payoff in. So if we go down here, you'll see me talking about it. You'll see them say, yes, we've attached the A to B HUD. This is great. I'm going to show you guys an entire transaction via email right here. So yes, we've attached the A to B HUD. Here it is right here attached, and I say thank you, and then I send them a payoff statement, right? So I send them a payoff statement right here with how much money is going to be owed to me. And they say, awesome, thanks, Ryan. And then what do they say? They say attached is the updated B2C HUD. So that's the second HUD, with a payout of $75,000 plus your $1,875 fee to the wiring instructions based on your previous email, right? And they attach that to this email. So I checked that and it looked good. So now I have confirmation on a HUD statement, which is the closing statement, the settlement statement for the contract, that says, hey, this is how much we're going to pay Ryan at closing. Again, thus far, honestly, and this is funny, I said this the other day when this happened, I was like, this might be one of the smoothest transactions I've ever had. They responded within minutes, they were on top of things, they had everything lined up correctly, the way I would have expected them to, and we were good to go. So things were rocking and rolling here. Attached is the updated B2C HUD, you can see it right here, it was correct. So then they sent me a couple other things, the general warranty deeds for the deals, blah, blah, blah. Cool, so this is where things take a turn. So I had all of that in place, right? And I had basically everything that I needed paperwork to say, hey, we're rocking and rolling on this thing. Things are looking good. This might actually make sense. I'll go make a quick $2,000. And the side note of why I think I felt a little bit of pressure here, which again is not, it's not an excuse and it's not a good reason at all. But the person who sent me this deal, it was gonna be their first deal. I was gonna make them their first money in real estate. And that crap gets me amped up, straight up. So I was like, let's do this thing. We're gonna make him, $1,000 or whatever in 30 minutes. That'll be so exciting. It'll jumpstart his career. He'll go crush it. Stoked for him, which by the way, I still am. We'll get another deal. But that was what I was thinking on this transaction, right? So I got all the paperwork lined up. I got everything ready to go. Well, once you've done all that and you have things confirmed in writing via email, then the only thing left to do is wire the money, literally. So what I did was I got the wire instructions and I put them in on my phone. Now that might sound a little bit premature, but what I do is I like to put the wire instructions. If you send a wire, whether it's on your computer or your phone, when you send a wire, you have to put in an account number, a routing number, the name of the place you're sending it, the address of the place you're sending it, all that good stuff. And I like to do it ahead of time so that when things are finally ready to go, I can just send it right in, right? I don't have to worry about it. Lesson learned, because one time I tried to add somebody to my bank account to send a wire the day of, and the bank said that they had to approve the thing for whatever reason, and so I ended up almost missing out on making a ton of money, and it would have been terrible. So now I do it ahead of time. So I put their bank account information in right away. I had it ready. So at this point, the only thing left to do was literally click on their name, type the amount of money in, and hit send. That was all that was left. But of course, I have one less check on my checklist, which, to be fair, is usually the first check on the checklist, and I glazed over it. I didn't glaze over it completely, but I moved forward a little bit too quickly, and that is making sure that the title company is legitimate. So just to put it out there in perspective for you guys, a lot of people say double closings are the safest type of transactional lending that you can possibly do. I'm not gonna say I agree or disagree, although that is certainly an opinion. But here's the thing. They are safe when it is legitimate. We'll put it that way. They're safe when it's legitimate and you know what the heck you're doing. But when you wire money, that money is gone. It's not like a credit card or a handshake agreement or whatever. When you wire money, that money is gone. And that's why wire fraud is such a big deal. And so if you send money somewhere and they tell you they're gonna do something and they don't do it, you're screwed. Like there is no other option there. You're screwed. And so in this case, again, should have done it at the beginning. If you're watching this, do this first. When you receive a double closing deal, request, whatever, do your research on the title company. Usually I do, I didn't on this one, but I did afterwards. So a lot of times when I get double close requests, it's with big reputable companies I've worked with before, which makes life so easy. And honestly, it makes me sometimes forget to do stuff like this. But once I had everything in place, I said, okay, let me check out this title company, see what's going on. They happen to be registered in Florida, in the Jacksonville area, which is where I'm from. And so I was like, sweet, let me check them out. I haven't heard of them, which is interesting, but we'll see. So let me go to the email here and let's take a look. So the person in here, I'm not afraid of exposing their name, honestly, because yeah, you'll find out in a minute. But I just want to look at their website, right? So they call themselves title1florida.com. And you can see it's in their email. It's mentioned in the letterhead up here, right there, Title 1 Florida, blah, blah, blah. And there's an address. Cool. So all that stuff exists. Now, what are we going to do with this information? Well, we got to figure out what is going on with Title 1 Florida. So what I did was I went on to their website. Now, this is going to be fun to show you guys. So the website that you just saw in the email was this one right here. When we hit enter, you'll see it says this site can't be reached. So this is a fun development in the saga. So this sucks. I can't even show you guys the website. So I'll have to explain to you what I was seeing. This may be harder for some people than other. You know what I'll do? I'll show my website just because it's mine, so I can't offend anybody. So if you go on my website, it's a pretty clean looking website, but it's not fancy by any means. It's a go high level website. It's, it's a template. It's not supposed to be fancy. It's supposed to get the job done. And so if you scroll down, you'll see stuff that's like pretty templatized for the most part, right? You can see it on some of this stuff on the contact page, whatever. Because of that, I have an eye for when people have just used like templates off of Go High Level or off of, GoDaddy or Wix or whatever. Oftentimes you'll see websites where it'll say like, as featured on Forbes or Wall Street Journal or something, and you're like, really? This little title company, like that doesn't make any sense. And this was one of those cases. So I was looking at a website, it didn't look legitimate. There was 2 reviews on the website, right? So here's the sequence of events of what I did. The first thing was I looked at the bottom review. I wish I could show you guys this. It's not there anymore. So I looked at the bottom of the review. It had the name of a real estate agent in Florida. It said, you know, we worked with them. They did a really fast transaction, blah, blah, blah. I was like, cool. So I look up the name. All real estate agents are in a database online. So I look up the name. Nothing comes up, right? I'm like, okay. Check the other one. Nothing comes up. So fishy, obviously, right? Something's fishy. The website doesn't look great. The references don't seem to be real people. So what did I do then? Well, the first thing I did was I jumped back over to my email and I said, hey, I was just checking out the references on here and neither of them come up. What's going on with that? That's more of like a let's see what they say type thing, right? So I just threw that out there. And then once I did that, I said, okay, let's look at the company itself. So you can do this in any state. It's all going to be a different, website or whatever. So I know that sunbiz.org is where you look up entities in Florida, right? I'm from Florida, so I know this stuff. And so if you go onto Sunbiz, then you can start searching the records for a business. And we'll just search by name. So what I did was I typed in, you can see in my history that I've done this before. So I typed in the entity name and I searched. And here we find the entity that was listed on the email and that was listed on the website. It's Title One Florida, Inc. And then we go over to status and it says inactive. Okay, so what I'm seeing is that the status of the company who is handling this, large real estate transaction, a legal transaction, transfer of ownership, is not a legally operating business. Okay, now some people are starting to think, Ryan, you're an idiot. There's a lot of red flags here. Yes, that's what I'm showing you. So inactive business is the status. It gets even more fun than that though. So I see the inactive business, I take a screenshot of it, I send it, in between, just so I tell the story correctly, in between they responded about the agent and said, I said this agent doesn't exist in Florida. They said, oh, it's not a Florida real estate agent. I was like, yeah, cool, that makes a lot of sense since they were closing on a transaction with a title company that's a local title company and the address of the transaction was in Florida. But anyways, so then I send them a screenshot of this and I said, hey guys, we are seeing that your company is inactive. What's the deal? Again, I'm drawing my own conclusions at this point, but I still like asking the questions because, why not? And so I do that. But here's the real kicker that I figured out on this one. If you go into the emails, you'll see 2 people that I'm talking to. You'll see this name right here, and then you'll see this name right here, right? So Justin and Irving was the 2 names. So Justin was the wholesaler that was presenting the deal to me, asking for the money, and then Irving was the title rep. So I was talking to both of them in this email thread. So I go over to Sunbiz and I'm looking at the business that says it's inactive, so I click on it. And what do I see when I click on this? Well, I go down here to the document images. And I click on this and check this out. This gets me hyped up. I got hyped up when I saw this. So I click on it and the email address is irvingmaxwell@winjustin.com. Can anybody else appreciate what I just said? Let's go back to the email. We have Justin Wynn as the wholesaler and Irving Maxwell as the title rep. Okay, now let's go back. The registration is irvingmaxwell@winjustin.com. The email address is literally the 2 people's names combined. At this point, I just started laughing. I was like, holy crap, this is insane. So at this point, it's like, okay, these people are posing as the same person. But I still hadn't fully raised the red flag on them, right? I was asking them questions. I wasn't trying to be accusatory because I like to see how people respond to stuff. I feel like I learned something from it. So the next thing I did, and my wife is in the room for this to help me, was I called the title rep and I asked him the same question I sent on the email. Hey, the business isn't even active. What's going on? And he made up, blah, 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 something stupid. And I said, okay, cool. And then I hung up. And then I called the other phone number for the wholesaler. Pick up. Same person, same voice. And I was just laughing at this point. And I checked to make sure. I was like, Haley, is this the same voice? Yeah, same voice. It's like, wow, okay, this is awesome. So we are actively getting scammed at this point, which then makes it more fun for me, because once I know I'm getting scammed, it's like, okay, how much information and fun can I have with this? So then it kind of became like a game where I was like, okay, one person posing to be two people trying to scam me out of 80 grand. What can I find out about these people? So I just kept digging on the phone with the second guy. I was like telling him what I was finding, trying to see what he would say, and he was making up excuse after excuse. And then eventually, you know, if you've ever talked to a scammer before, they'll just flip out on you and be like, you're a terrible person, I can't believe you, whatever. And he hung up, of course. But not before I got to have plenty of fun with it. So crazy, right? This is crazy that this happened. And then the next day, right, I go to start prepping to make this video for you guys to try and make sure everybody else can learn from it. And what do I find? The website's taken down. So major bummer there. But let me show you guys a couple other things that you can do that I did in this situation. So the first one is to type in the title company. And let me show you, before I even do that, let me go back here. All right, so check this out. Any title company, just go ahead and Google it and see what comes up. And going back to what I was saying, the first thing you want to do, so see how on the instructions that were given to me here, you can see an address, an email, and then a phone number, right? So you can see those things on this document. But who sent this document? Well, somebody that was sending all the other emails. So therefore, don't trust the document at all. In fact, sometimes they even tell you not to trust the document because it's that untrustworthy, because anybody could intercept, send, whatever. And if it's a scam and you're like, oh, don't worry, I verified and called the phone number on the scam thing, you dummy. You can't do that. You have to find it on a third-party source, right? So what we're gonna do is we're gonna look up on Google the title company. Okay, things to note. First thing, when I Google the title company, no like company and address comes up on the right side. Now let me show you what a good title company would look like. Title America. Boom. So title company in Phoenix, boom, it comes up. We've got an address, we've got hours, we've got a phone number, there's photos of the storefront. You're probably already catching my drift here, right? So let's go back to this stupid company and you see nothing comes up, red flag number one. Next, a bunch of sponsored ads come up, and then the first website that comes up is a different Title I Florida that doesn't use the number one, which is the address that they had given us. And then the down here is the one that was given to us that comes up on the Google search. And then of course when we click on it, nothing comes up now, but at the before, what came up was just a scammy looking website. So the company itself doesn't even come up. So that's where the buck stops with this one, to be totally honest with you. But again, let me go back to this just so you can see. So here what you can do is you can, first of all, you call the phone number that's listed on Google. Again, third-party source. So call the phone number that's listed on Google. Don't call the phone number that shows up on the wire instructions because those could be fake. Call the one that shows up on Google. And when you're on Google, you're also going to see the address. Again, in this one, it's perfect. You can literally see the photos, but you can also go to Google Maps and literally just look at it. This is if you don't live there, right? You can just go down, and I just throw the little homeboy down, and then just look for it. Oh, it looks like we're in the back, but you can find the place, right? So it's one of these buildings. You get the point. So you can search for it and just find the storefront on actual Google Maps. I did that with this title company based off of the address that was coming up on this email, and it didn't show any sign that said that title company name. It was like a shopping mall center thing, and it showed a bunch of other businesses, but it didn't show this one. So again, tons of red flags, but I'm trying to point them all out to you so that you know what to actually look for when you're doing this. So try and find it on the maps. When you type it in, something should come up on the Google search itself on the right side. That shows that it's a legitimate business. You should look at their reviews. And if you're doing a big closing, a lot of liquid funds, the best thing you can do is have somebody physically go into the title company and meet the person that you're talking to via email. Kind of sounds aggressive, but if you're sending multiple millions of dollars somewhere, then I'm guessing losing that sounds pretty aggressive too. So pay somebody, right? It doesn't have to be you. Most of the times that I do deals, it's not, right where I'm living at the time. So send somebody, find somebody, pay somebody to go in and actually meet the title rep. These are the things that you need to do if you want to be fully protected. And I'll just put it out there for you. You want to be fully protected in this situation. All right. So again, I don't make this stuff up. This literally happened this week. I'm telling you guys something that I went through this week so that you can understand how real this crap is, that people aren't just making it up, and that you could run into these scenarios as well. So to recap everything I said, deal comes in, they're rushing it, that's red flag number one. But they do the paperwork really well. The second thing is I look it up online, nothing comes up when you look it up on the Google Maps. I check on the Google map itself and I don't see the name of the business. When I go to the website, it looks sketchy. When I check the references, nothing comes up. Then I check the registration of the company and it is an inactive company on the registration. And then of course, nail in the coffin, I call both the title rep and the wholesaler and it's the same person. That's kind of the funny part. I would venture to guess nobody else is ever gonna run into something that funny, but hey, who knows? Definitely possible. But that's how you protect yourself in a double closing transaction. They are incredibly safe when you follow the rules, but if you rush for any reason, then you can potentially go from a small win, right? This would have just been a small win, a base hit, to a potentially catastrophic, I don't want to oversay it here, but like life-altering loss, right? Like terrible. It could be terrible if you lose that much money. So big deal. You got to protect yourself. You got to focus on these things first. This is how you protect yourself on a double closing. I know I didn't go into the details of the paperwork, but I did go into the details of how you can vet the title company and vet the things that are going on to make sure that they're legitimate. As I mentioned in the video, everything I talked about, do those things first, right? Check the legitimacy first, because then if you're gonna do it either way, you might as well do it first, because I would have saved myself, in this case, it was really quick. I would have only saved myself a couple extra minutes because I did things so quickly, but potentially hours of back and forth with the title company going over the contracts, the HUD statements, the payoffs, all that stuff, because they're fraudulent to begin with, right? Or even you're just not willing to work with them to begin with. It doesn't have to be fraudulent. It could be they don't have good reviews, or they don't have many reviews, or they haven't existed for very long, right? You want a title company that's established, that knows what they're doing, that you can actually put your trust in, because you're putting your dang money in their account. So find somebody you can trust. I hope this video has been helpful. If you have never done a double closing before and you want to learn more about it, again, check out the other videos on my channel talking about this stuff. I want to teach more people how to do it. And in fact, I do teach people how to do what I do in more detail for free on Skool. Links right down below. So jump in the Skool. I'll see you guys in the next video.